everybody. How you doing? My name is Warren Dews. I am the publisher of the Upstater, of the Columbia paper, the Ravenna News Herald, and the Greenville Pioneer. In our market for the Ravenna News Herald and the Greenville Pioneer, we started a couple of years ago a program called the Community Conversations, and we're going to be bringing that to the Columbia market. Community Conversations, under that umbrella, we have something called Get to Know, where we either get to know an advertiser or we get to know community leaders. Then we have a thing called Meet Your Neighbor, where we just meet regular people and interview and talk to them. And lastly, we have a thing called Ask the Expert. So I want to talk to someone who has a relationship with our paper as a writer, but she has a lot of other things going on that I want everybody to get to know about her. So my new friend, who are you? Tell everybody who you are.
Well, my name is Debbie Lans. I'm a Columbia County resident of pretty long standing. I date back to the very end of 1983. I'm a lawyer by background, raised in New York City, and have been writing for the paper now for on and off for a number of years, and take great pleasure in doing that.
Awesome. So you said you're from New York, born and raised, like what part of New York?
In Manhattan, yes, born and raised, one of those few people who can say those things and who lived there for a long time.
I was also born and raised in New York City. I was born in the Bronx, raised in the Bronx. I went to high school at LaGuardia High School, the Fame High School.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I can say that with you. So what do you think New York's done for you to be successful in your law practice? I mean, and what got you into law?
I'll take the second question first. My father was a lawyer, and he was really one of something that doesn't exist anymore, which is like a general practitioner. He did a little of everything. And I didn't really, growing up, understand what it was that he did. But what I really got was that he was passionately, like he really loved what he did. And so that made me interested in it. And then, I'm ancient. I went to college in the 60s. And so, one of the things that, was in the air then was sort of change and how to change the world and how to change systems. And so I thought about law school really as, an instrument at the time of change. Spent some of my time while I was in law school working on juvenile justice reform, juvenile justice representation. So that was really sort of my first foray in that direction.
So you're going to make me jump to this. So one of the things that I read about you was that you worked worked with kids that were on, I guess kids that were on that borderline of getting in trouble or coming out of trouble. Did you work with kids doing on a program like that?
Well, I worked when I was in law school, both during the year and in the summers. In one summer, I worked with the Defenders Program, the Public Defenders Program in the Juvenile Rights Division. Okay. So that was very directly like that. Then when I was in my firm, I started a program between my firm and a Lower East Side junior high school they had a law and ethics program that was an unbelievably good program that really got kids to think about not the law as law, and all of its negative connotations, but really what were the values that the law was trying to uphold and what were the ethics of the kinds of situations they could get into. And so we started a mentoring program with that junior high school where we had kids come into the law firm, understand, what lawyers did and meet lawyers, and because there weren't necessarily any lawyers in their lives, right? And let them kind of understand what the profession was about, the ways in which they could practice. And we had kids just a few kids come to work for us during the summer. And actually, one of those students who I first met when she was 11 or 12, I'm still in touch with, and worked with her when she was applying to colleges, actually, I think, helped her get into the college that she went to. And she's now deeply involved in diversity kinds of issues, Puerto Rican by background. And, so that had a lot to do with sort of helping me understand what the challenges are for kids who aren't exposed to the same things that, some of us just take for granted, honestly. And that in turn led me to take a couple of years off from practicing to work with a group called Mentoring USA, which was
Okay.
a program that Matilda Cuomo started when she was the first lady of the state, and then ultimately became a nonprofit that matched mostly kids in a sort of 5 to 12-year-old age range with one-on-one mentors all throughout the city.
So it's funny you mentioned Matilda Cuomo, and we talked about that before. One of the things in my getting to know you, you don't seem like a political person. You seem like someone just does stuff from the heart, and so not the Cuomo family. I'm not going to talk about that. But anytime you deal with politics, you have to deal with politics. Why did you like it? Did you love it? And not just not Cuomo family, but just in general, politics in general.
Yeah, I'm not a political person. I mean, I understand the need to get things done and the difficulties that politicians have, because it's, everything they do is a negotiation with a lot of people, right? If you're,
Mhm.
in the state legislature, if you're in Congress, like, it's not like you have the power to do it yourself, right? So they have to forever negotiate and compromise, and, a lot of stuff that is understandable, but and I'm not a rigid person. I get negotiating and all the rest of that, but I don't love the way that the politicians do it. I don't really love the BS that's part of the process.
So you've been in this in the Columbia market, the Columbia County market for over like was 40 years, you said?
So we came up as weekenders in '84,
Okay.
and there's not like one moment in time when I became full time here, or mostly full time here, but I sort of grew in that direction over the like from 2017 along. And I've been here full time pretty much since then.
So did you work with the hospital? Tell me about that. You were on the board with the hospital. Tell me what that board is. And
Yeah, I'm on the board. I was the board chair for 3 years. So Columbia Memorial Hospital is actually a healthcare network. So there's the hospital, which is a community hospital, and performs some surgery, emergency care. But we also have a wide range of primary and specialty care practice, both in Columbia and Greene counties. Um, so we're serving, a population of 110,000 people, something like that, in the two counties. And we have physical presence all over the two counties, especially with the primary care practices, rapid care. We're also part of the Albany Med larger healthcare systems, which has all of the Albany Med, major kinds of services. Saratoga Hospital, Glens Falls Hospital, Visiting Nurses Association are all part of that conglomeration.
so you said number one, are you still on the board?
Yeah, I'm still on the board.
Okay, cool. So it's funny. I sit on a lot of boards, and I didn't realize how important boards are in the network that you get with them. But it can be a lot of work, and a lot of your time. Number one, I why did you join this board? Answer that question, then I have a follow up.
So, when my mother lived in Connecticut, about an hour outside of the city. And the last decade or so of her life, she was in and out of health, and spent a lot of time at what was her community hospital in Norwalk, Connecticut. So I spent a lot of time there because I was the only kid who was in the vicinity. And I got to really appreciate the importance of a community hospital And the fact that when you're there, as opposed to in Manhattan or in Albany, you're still in your community. Your friends and your family can visit you. It has a different feel to it from a major hospital. And I really became a fan, if you will, of the importance of that kind of local care. So when somebody approached me and asked me if I'd be interested, I said I really was, because I Columbia Memorial plays that same role here. Um, and
So you've been on the board, for a very long time. Aren't you? Didn't you get an award? Are you about to get an award?
I actually just last weekend, at our annual ball was given, I don't know, I was honored. One of the two people who was honored at it.
So
Um,
how did you feel about that? You kind of go, oh, I was on it, but that's a big deal.
I don't know. Yeah, I guess it's a big deal. It was very nice, and I appreciate it, but I also feel like, and I said this at the time, I was just a person who was there really as a representative of a lot of other people. The hospital has a great board of close to 20 people, and they're all passionate and involved and dedicated, and they spend the time and do the work, and you know. For my money, you could honor every single one of them or the whole group. And I think, I was just a figurehead for all of the board that does fantastic work, for the hospital and for the people it serves.
So you've been writing for our paper. So I want to shout out Mark Vinciguerra, my business partner and president and owner of Capital Region Independent Media. We bought the Columbia paper a couple of years ago from the Teasdales, and shout out to the Teasdales and for the work that they do. They still work for the paper, and Amelia is our editor. But her father is an amazing man, and we
Yes.
try to make sure that we can keep the paper growing, but not change the foundation of what he built, because it's very important that we keep it similar to how he had it, but also grow. I say all that to say, when Mark found out who you were and we started reading up on you and understanding who you are, we were like, whoa, this is a big get. Got this amazing this amazing person writing for us. Like, so why do you, what got you into writing and doing what you do for this paper?
So, about 10 years ago, um, kind of sensing that I was going to be spending more and more time as I age up in
Mm-hmm.
Columbia County. I wrote to Parry, who I didn't know at the time, and because I had this idea that one of the really interesting ways to get to know the county would be to write for the paper, right? Because it would kind of introduce you to all sorts of things you don't necessarily always see. So I dropped them a note because I always used to have this little ad that said "Reporters Wanted," and I said I'd like to be a reporter, and didn't hear anything. So I wrote again, right? Because it's in my nature to be persistent. And so Parry wrote back and he said, "Well, you passed the first test. You have persistence." So
I
we
was gonna I was gonna say that, but that's a Perry. That's so good. That's so good.
absolutely. And so we had coffee and talked, and I brought him some things that I had written when I was at the mentoring organization. Matilda and I wrote a monthly column for an education paper. So I had some not legal things that I had written that were more tolerable to ordinary people. And I brought him a couple of those. And we just agreed that I would write. And at the time I was working full time, but I kind of said, so like, I'll do it when I can, if I have an idea, I'll let you know. If you have an idea, let me know. And so I spent about a year and a half or 2 years just writing on and off for the paper and really enjoyed it. And then kind of stopped, and I don't really remember why, but then as my term as the hospital board chair was coming to an end, I realized, apropos of it takes a lot of time, that I was going to have some free time. And I'm not a person to just sort of sit around and, I don't know, twiddle my thumbs. So I called Parry and I asked him if we could have coffee, and I asked him the question again, "Can I write for you?" And he said, "Absolutely." And that's how I got back to it. And to me, it's a joy. It's an opportunity to just look into things and find out about them that, are important to the county, and try to put my hands around the people that are involved and the issues, and put it on paper.
So I've been in the media business for over 30 years, and I've worked in every aspect of it, on the business side, advertising, circulation, growing readership, things of that nature, marketing. The one department that I never worked in, I worked closely with, but I'm not a reporter. I didn't work in the newsroom, and I'm the publisher of this paper. And one of the things that always confused me was understanding reporters. So I ended up marrying a reporter, and I'm still confused. Still I'm I'm still confused. My wife is an NYU grad. I met her at a newspaper, and the one thing that I admire about people with a journalism background is you ask the right questions to learn the other side of the story, to learn both sides of the story, and you have the skill set to go into something and not know much about it, but get a lot out about it, either in your research before you go or the questions that you ask. So it is something that I admire as a journalist. What got you into journalism? I mean, you're writing for us, but as a journalist and writing is two different things, I believe.
Well, I guess a couple of things. As a lawyer, I was a litigator. Okay, so and I did about half of the time I did commercial cases, and so I could do a case that was about the pulp and paper industry one day, and in order to do that case, you had to learn how the equipment worked, how the industry worked. You had to be able to talk to the people, and if you went to trial with the case, you had to be able to question a person who was in the industry with enough knowledge that they couldn't bullshit you, right? So those skills, and then next year you could be doing something about knee replacement devices. Same thing. Now you have to swallow knee replacement devices. What makes a knee work? What the device is made out of? What works? What doesn't work? So those skills of doing the research sort of quickly, right, and really getting your hands around something, and then being able to ask the questions about it. That's the same whether you do that in journalism or you do that as a litigator. It's kind of the same. I mean, the style that you may use to ask questions might be different, but it's the same skill set.
No, it's a
So
beautiful explanation. You're 100% right. That's what I believe. I mean, you get in. So my wife wrote a story years ago. I brag about this all the time. She worked at the Times Herald Record in Middletown, New York, and she wrote a story about rims. At that time, everyone got 20-inch rims. They were spinning. That was the big thing. And
right.
she knew nothing about it, but she wrote the story so well that not only everyone was reading it, but a magazine about rims took her story and published her story. And I
Cool.
think she wrote more. So it's just mind blowing. So it taught me, as a publisher, my job is a lot. It is to make sure that I can bring revenue and to keep this paper thing going, but also make sure that I let my journalists do their job. Do what they do. We don't. People get mad all the time. We don't write story. If you are an advertiser of ours and a big advertiser of ours, you do something, we're going to write about it. And we hope that you keep your advertisement. If you pull it, you pull it. Whatever the case may be, you're not going to control our news. And that's the thing that I love about journalists is that they couldn't care less about who's paying what, who's buying what. They're going to write the story and write it from and write the truth and write both sides of it, make sure it's fair and balanced. And that's what our papers are all about. And that's what I love about journalists. And reading your stories, I see that. I see that that's what you do. So bring us all to the understanding of you being a lawyer now a journalist. You're saying they're similar. Explain to me how you use that skill in law of making sure that you're fair and balanced and you fight for what you fight for, but also being a journalist.
Well, if you're a litigator, you can't just, yes, you're an advocate, right? And you have a client and you're on their side. But to be effective on their side, you have to understand the other side, right? Otherwise, you're just telling half of a story and you're not pushing on the weaknesses and you're not understanding what the flaws are. So to me, I guess it's natural to want to know both sides. And I also have come to understand, maybe this is just part of getting old, right? That there's always more than one side, usually more than two sides, right? And you can't honestly tell a story without respecting all the different points of view, right? I might have a point of view, other people have a point of view. My job isn't to tell you what you should think, it's to give you the facts and let you kind of form your opinions. So you can't ignore the rest of what's out there, right?
So, no, finish. You want to say something?
No, I was just going to say it's dishonest if you do that, right?
So you write for us now. You have planned. I know you plan out things you're going to write about. But so what are some things that really interest you, and what are some things you plan on writing in the near future and distant future?
So some things that have interested me and I've written about and I will continue because they're important are childcare and early literacy, which one of the boards I was on in the city was an early literacy program, and I'm really, really deeply believe that enabling kids to read well is the most critical thing to their success that you can do, and that starts with literally birth. Not that they're reading at birth, but that the brain develops at birth, that understanding words and sounds, all of those skills really do start at the beginning. So I've written a lot about childcare and early literacy, and I will continue to in the programs that are in the county and where the gaps are. Housing is really important to me, so I've written about it, and I will, because the affordable housing crisis, it's not that it's different in Columbia County, but it's every bit as important here as it is anywhere else. And we're the second oldest county in the state in terms of population. And that's partly because young people can't afford to live here. So there's no future in that kind of a situation. And, I think it's important. I think people are beginning to understand the importance of providing affordable housing, but I think it's something that needs constant attention. Climate change is something that I, write about and will always write about, because it's the biggest threat that we have long term to, the world. I'm planning, and there are lots of sort of one-off things that I write about, but I'm planning to do a series now on the justice system in the county in a sort of a broad sense. So, what does the justice system look like? Who's administering justice? What kinds of special programs are there that are progressive? So, for example, there's a mental health court in Hudson that looks to divert appropriate defendants to mental health services rather than incarceration. That's been very successful, and it's the kind of program that's makes such common sense and is really important. And I don't know how much people know about it. There's a drug court, there's a domestic violence part, so a lot of, the justice system traps and illustrates a lot of societal issues in its own way. A lot of crime is obviously the result of poverty. So talking about what the ways are that Columbia County has found to address some of the issues through the justice system, divert people out of the system into more productive, treatment-oriented systems. It's something that interests me, as a lawyer and as a person. So just starting on that, starting to interview people, and plan to talk about there's some great programs that are around that I think don't have a great deal of attention that I would like to put some spotlight on.
So that's a lot, and I don't want to get deep into what I'm about to say, but you and I talked about the whole reading aspect. And I have a friend who owns he's a book author, and him and another friend of mine started this thing called "Read or Else." It's a phrase that they use. It's a shirt that every time I wear it, people stop me in my tracks and they go, "Read or else, what's that mean?" And his point is, if a person is not reading above a third grade reading level, read or else, they're more likely to be incarcerated or on welfare and not be very successful in life. And then he did a program where he went into the jail, and him and my friend, they put together a program where they had parents, fathers and mothers read his children's book, record it, tape it, record it, whatever, and send it to the child so then they can see their mother and father read them a book to bed. In that process, he realized that not only did he have to have these parents read, but he had to help them because they couldn't read this children's book.
Yeah.
And that's just mind blowing. That's the, I guess the thing very connected to some of the issues is
Yeah.
reading.
The woman who was a fabulous woman, she passed away some years ago, who founded the literacy group that I worked with in the city, had an expression which was, before third grade, we learn to read. After third grade, we have to read to learn. And that really says it. If by then you're not able to read to learn, you're not going to learn. So and more and more, I think we come to know that it's really even before third grade, that a lot of the sort of brain development that and the vocabulary development that lead to, good reading actually happens, 0 to 5.
So more to come at. You and I will talk more about that. But I wanted to thank you today for getting to know more about you. You are an amazing person, and I'm blessed just to be able to research you and find out more about you. But to say that you write for our company, for our paper, is definitely an amazing thing for us. And on behalf of Mark, Vinciguerra, and Perry, and Amelia, I want to thank you. I want to thank you and appreciate you. And I appreciate the fact that you do this, not for the money, but you do it for the love of doing it. And we definitely appreciate that. And I look forward to doing more with you. So me ask you this question. I stole this from a couple of talk shows. So there's a show called The Pivot that asked this question, and my wife has her own little podcast. She asked this question. I'm gonna change it a little bit, but if there's a word or phrase that explains who you are, what would that be?
Curious.
Okay.
Curious. Curious. I mean, I like to learn new things. I'm curious about things, so I asking questions is part of that. Getting to know new things is part of that.
Awesome. Well, listen, thank you so much for your time. Once again, everybody, this is Community Conversations. This is a get to know with Deb Lans. We definitely appreciate her time. And if you have any other questions, you can always link us up, email us, or call me personally at 413-212-0130. I'm the only publisher in the world to give my personal cell phone, so don't tell me you can't talk. Anyway, thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful life.